Hey guys, it's me, physical security. I'm Anthony. This is made with spiritual or emotional help from Garrett Lockpick, my physical security co-lead, and ancestral help from Bailey Powers and Loudon Mailing. If you don't know them, you fell off. Yeah, I'm old. Okay. Yeah, who is this guy? I'm Anthony. I'm kind of just everywhere. I was the president last year. I was the head of research 2 years ago. I'm the physical IG co-lead. I've been kicked out of ops, basically kicked out of black team, kind of almost kicked out of red team. Can't help being a Libra. I've interned at like all of the RITSEC poster child locations like SRA and IBM. I took a harmonica class if that counts. And then you can ask me about the hacker terminal if you know this. And then I can also juggle a little bit now too, which is kind of cool. It's not as cool as knowing about wine, but yeah. So ethics, this is actually really important because you can totally very easily commit a ton of crimes with everything that I'm about to tell you. Like a lot. The golden rules of physical security that I think we covered week 1 of physical IG and then never again was don't break into stuff you don't own. You're going to go to jail if you try to break into other people's stuff. I'm going to make sure of it. And then also don't try to break into things that you rely on unless you need to. Like there was a guy who was like, I'm going to try to break into my car with a popsicle stick. And then it got like frozen into the keyway and he could just never get into his car. He had to like crawl over the seat. So like actually try to follow these or you're cooked. But why should you even care about physical security? Like Zachary Networking Price be like, oh, I love my networks and I love security so much. And then like, boom, don't care. Thermite on your door handle. There's a sledgehammer to your hard drive and he's cooked. Or like, some guy let me in for a free donut and now I'm plugged right into your entire network. So like, you can have the coolest stuff ever in the world. If I can just boss on in there and just do whatever, it's not that great. It's just so fun and cool. Be like, yeah, I know how to break into buildings. I learned how to break into buildings today. And like show off at parties. Be like, oh, those door hinges are on wrong. Awesome. People love that stuff. So if you've ever done anything physical, you know that there's a required lock picking lesson because it's physical security. And just going to shout out Deviant Olam for all the GIFs. The thing says you can use these GIFs, just give me a shout out. So I love this guy's little GIFs. Like, look at this. So when you look at a lock, that's pretty much what you're going to see. This is the lock face. You can kind of see like maybe a pin or two. But what's really going on the inside is you can see these like 3, 4, 5 separate components, which are named these. So you're looking at a spring, a driver pin, a shear line, a key pin, and a core. So the core is kind of the thing that holds everything together. And then these two pieces are kind of what move up and down. And the spring lets that happen. So with these two pieces, your objective when you're opening anything is to get this section above the shear line. And when you get that, then it can rotate freely. So when you're actually using a key, this is what it looks like. There's a preset height that every pin needs to hit so you can hit that shear line. And once you put it in, you can turn the key and then the door opens. So if you have a key like this, and there's a little tiny bit that's not lined up, not gonna work. So when you're lock picking, you're trying to go in and manually set all of these lines. So there's like a way that you can stick the picks in and then bind each single pin above the shear line in a way that they'll stick. And when you're going in, you're trying to feel out all the pins. And then this example here, like this is the binding pin, which when you set that, it'll actually stick. But why does that stick? That makes no sense. In an ideal world, when you're machining these pin tumblers, it's gonna look like that one, where everything's lined up, everything's nice, and it's all smooth. But in reality, making stuff costs money, and people don't wanna do that. So what you get more is a lot like this. So if you see this rectangle, there's like, it's touching here, it's not touching there. And you get these really tiny machining errors that when you take the pins and stick them up while you're turning, it'll be just enough of a lip that'll catch the pins so you can do what's being shown in the middle. It'll stay just enough that you can actually get it to set. So when you're lockpicking, going through, and you're trying to get all of these to set. This is the same GIF, so it's just gonna do the same thing. But the idea is that you lift up all these pins to their shear line, they'll stay, they'll be set, and then you can open lock. And then for master keys, this guy's name is Master Key, I just Googled it and it came up from Fortnite. Just trust the process. For master keys, if you think about dorms, there's your RA is a key that can get into everything. So how does that work? So what they'll do is they'll put in little extra pieces that will also operate on the shear line if you put in a different key. So say your key triggers at like this point, but then the master key is keyed to that level. So then they can go in and turn as well. So for fundamentals, does that make sense? We good? Splendid. So what are you actually going to do this? The first one is hook picks. So these are the most common what you think of when you hear about lock picking. And this is the tool that lets you go in and lift all of these pins up individually. So they have some like weird varieties. Like, come on, man. I don't even know who made that. But ideally, like you're going in and you're lifting up each pin. There's also half diamond picks, and everyone's like, oh, a half diamond, I'm going to do that. But it's like, it's a triangle on a triangle. Like, there's got to be better tools for that. So what you're actually trying to do is take the half diamond pick, push it in, and then you're going to like, the straight edge to straight edge is going to lift it up. So that's one use for them. And then another one is you put it all the way to the back of the keyway. If it's a new lock, you don't really know what's going on. And then as you slowly pull back, it'll like click into place. And then like, oh, I heard 5 clicks. It's probably 5 pins. Somewhat of an intellectual. And then there's also rake picks. These are like, honestly, this is, if I'm ever lock picking something in real life, this is just the go-to, and if this doesn't work, I'm just cooked. What you do with these is like you put it in the keyway, and then you just like jiggle it really, really, really fast, and it's kind of just brute forcing all the pins, and eventually you might be able to get it so they all stick up. If you're actually doing this on, say, like a physical security test, most times you're not going to have enough time to kind of like sit there and eloquently like do all the stuff. When you could just kind of go up, you try it a bunch of times really fast, and then like, oh, there's probably security pins, it's unpickable, no one can ever get in this lock ever, and then walk away. And then tension wrenches. So this is what's actually applying the turning force, because when you put in a key, putting in the key is kind of like setting the pins, and then when you turn the key, that's what actually opens the lock. And this is like your turning force for the lock. There's a couple different types. I like these ones just because like when you put your hand on it, you're not doing on the flat part. It's like twisted and it's real nice and it doesn't hurt my little fingers, which are so nimble. And then tensioning types. There's 2 ways to tension locks. One of them is from the bottom and the other one is from the top. So in a normal keyway, this kind of gives you the most like rotational force. And it's just, if you can do that, it's awesome. But in some cases, it's like a really screwed up keyway. So you can actually come in from the top. And if you have a small enough tension wrench, you can rest it in here so that you have enough room to manipulate the lockpick. So when you're actually holding them, it's pretty much like that. You need to make sure you're putting in enough force. So there's a lot of people who will actually be successful. They'll actually open a lock, and then they just didn't turn it. And then they're like, this is impossible. And then they actually just had it the whole time. This guy needs lotion. Jeez. So then you're kind of, once you're holding, this is really hard on the microphone, you're holding the tension, or you're holding the lock with the tension wrench, and that's all in one hand, and then you're able to freely move the pick, and you can feel through all the pins. I know we have a couple see-through locks. They're really bad, but it gives you a good idea for the motion of actually like lifting up every pin, and you can see what happens when you do it. This is some more basic technique, plus a picture of Enzo. This is Loud and Slide from probably like 4 years ago, but I love Enzo. This might actually be his hands. Something like that. But this is another example of when you put in the tension wrench, being able to apply that force, then taking the lockpick, holding it mostly like a pencil. People have different techniques, but I find that that works pretty well. And then like pushing and using that turning force to actually turn the key. So it's not always that easy. There's some other goofy lockpicking stuff. There's the overlifting and comb attack. Nobody say a word about that. You know why. So this is for really poorly designed locks, where if you see here, here's the where the shear line should be on all the pins. But when you put that in, you can just lift everything over that line. And if there's no pins in the way, you can just turn it freely. And that's, I think, Loudon probably drew that one, of just showing you what happens when you push everything up way higher than it should be. So that's a poorly designed lock. Another one is the master lock bypass. So sometimes there are these locks, they have little springs, and the springs hold in the padlock. And what you can actually do is put a lockpick all the way to the back. See, all the pins are here, doesn't matter, all the way to the end, and you can actually just push the whole thing down. So you don't need to lockpick at all if you can just pop the spring. Yeah. So if you see it's bending a little bit because that was the downward force, and then just in case you miss it, it's right there, man. And then the next is lock shimming. I don't know why I put the plus plus. I was probably going to say some crazy story, but I forgot. So if there is enough of a gap, like right here, I forget what this thing's called. Shackle, that's the one. So if there's enough gap between the shackle and the actual lock itself, you can put in a shim. And since this is kind of like a wedge, basically you're just pushing the wedge back so that, like, again, all the security stuff in the way doesn't even matter a little bit. There are some security mechanisms that do help prevent against lockpicking. One of them is just stupid keyways. This could be intentional, this could just be not intentional, but sometimes you just get one and you're like, I cannot get a lockpick in here, this is infuriating, I give up, which is like usually my go-to. Like those are a little tight, there's really skinny locks, so like they kind of have to be that way. This one's really curvy, some manufacturers will do this on purpose and they'll make their keys all sorts of goofy shapes just so you can't actually pick it. Another one is like weirdly shaped pins. So spool pins are a really common way to help prevent lockpicking. But you can see it's not impossible. But when you push up, if you were just trying to go and pick like normal, that would get caught and it's not going to go anywhere. Unless you're like cracked at lockpicking, these are going to be really, really hard to bypass. And then there's a whole like variety of just really screwed up pins that like God's light does not reach the manufacturers that make these. So like mushroom pins, for example, same idea as the spool pins. And then there's like come on, man. That's just screwed up. Those are serrated pins. It's just like, oh, I got it. Oh, I got it. Oh, I got it. And you don't got it. Okay. Any more questions on lockpicking? That was really, really fast. I kind of blew through that. Give me like a thumbs up if you're like, woo, yeah. I'm going to smite you, Garrett. So, if you're like me and you actually can't lockpick at all, I'm notoriously bad at this. You can ask Garrett. He's kind of our lockpicking guy. I'm kind of like the personality hire for physical edgy. But I can't pick locks. So what am I going to do instead? Physical bypasses. Because like, why would I try to defeat the thing that you have if I could just go around it? So the first one is canned air. I actually do have some of these goodies. So when you have motion sensor doors, by turning the canned air, you can spray and trip the motion sensors. So I think there's probably one on campus somewhere. But if you go up to that door and you're able to just spray underneath it, sometimes there's temperature detections. You can sometimes trip the temperature detections. And then also the movement. Yeah, he's saying Gleason dorms. Okay, this is empty. Okay, Garrett lives in Gleason, lived in Gleason, so he likes to break in, even though he lives there. But you can bypass the motion sensors using canned air, which is really easy. If you're like caught with this, it's not like, what are you doing with that? It's just like, oh, this guy's got canned air. So that's a really easy one. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes they need like higher temper differentials, and like you can't really trip those as easily with these. There are other ways to do it, but not with the canned air. And then door hinges. So this is a cool one to just be like, oh, look at that door. And it makes you sound so smart. Because like, oh, yeah, what do you guys see wrong with this? Nothing. It's just a door. It's probably, what are you going to fit in this room that's this big? So you'd be like, yeah, guys, check this out. Physical security expert. It's got door hinges. What do you think about door hinges? I was going to try to make a sound effect. Whooping. That's what it sounds like. You just pop the hinge right, like you just pop the door right off the hinges. So why would I try to like get past this masterfully crafted lock if I can just push the whole thing aside? So that one's a really good one. It's that takes a while and it makes a lot of noise and looks really, really sketchy. But for the most part, I mean, it works. There's another one, door latch shims. So if anyone's like somewhat old, they remember when this building was built that The conference room, or not the conference room, some of the meeting rooms, you could actually stick something into the door latch and, hold on, I might just yell while I try to demo this. But if you see here, normal door with this piece, but then there's this like piece on the back that'll lock it so you can't shut it. But with the door latch shims, as you can just depress this without any bypassing, or without bypassing the actual locking mechanisms. And then if there's like a misconfigured strike plate that this piece has to hit, it'll just always be like that, and then you can always just open the door. So the ones upstairs, like you could just walk up with like a card. What? Yeah. So Garrett just said it has to be big enough that both of these pieces in, because the way it's supposed to work is only the big piece is supposed to be in there. But if both fit, then you can shim. So the old rooms upstairs, you could just walk by with like your Lasertron card and just go, and it would just crack the door wide open like instantly. A couple different varieties. There's like discrete ones that fit into like wallets. You can just use like a card. I have like a Dave & Buster's card that's just demolished from trying to do this at different places. You can actually buy like probably like Sparrow, just has door shims, somewhat flexible but pretty sturdy to actually depress the strike plate or depress the locking mechanism. And then like this hook, it's scary. Be careful. Yes. Can use an RIT debit card. You probably wouldn't want to ruin the RIT debit card because as a valued Advantage Federal Credit Union member, that'd be frowned upon. Yeah. So this is probably my favorite tool ever in existence. The under door tool. So basically what this lets you do is exploit, honestly, most door handles, but like these ones in particular, which are ADA compliant, or the Americans with Disabilities Act. So there's like another one that doesn't work as well, but like that's this thing's bread and butter. So what you're doing, or okay, imagine you're in a room, and like the meeting rooms, for example, and you're in there and you have to get out of the meeting room, so you just like open the door and you get out. If you try to get in though, it's locked. So what you're trying to do with these is push it under the door, go up, and then let it hit the door handle. And then when it hooks, you could take this metal string and just open the door with it. So there's a lot of like finagling that you have to do to try to get it. A lot of people when they're first trying it is they'll just put it right underneath the door handle and just try to like pull down with like the force of 1,000 suns to try to get it when they should just be letting it like dangle and like using trigonometry or something. But like this thing really works. And in the case if you have like a really bad door handle that it wouldn't work on, like I've had success just wrapping it in duct tape, like just getting it to stick and pulling it down and having it still work. But as long as you have like a centimeter of door clearance, I'm probably just making that number up. That's a lot. If you have a decent amount of door clearance, you can just use this tool. You can hook the handle, boom, it's open. It's so simple. This is a rendering with DeepSeek, the new AI, of some dashing individual opening a door with it. Oh, look, there's the duct tape. Yes. If you're at a hotel, how do you stop this? That's actually a good question. I would, by blocking the door would be a good way. Most like if you have like a good or like manual locks also in the hotel room, like take advantage of those. Because if there's like an actual like lock or like a deadbolt, that's the word. Yeah. So if you can deadbolt it, like that's fine. What are you going on about? Like an extra one, like the one that goes like, dude, come on, man. I don't know what other pictures of this escapade. This is a DeepSeek rendering. This is a DeepSeek rendering. What are you rendering in DeepSeek, buddy? So moving on. There's also an overdoor tool, which is like just a roll of film. I think you can also buy dedicated overdoor tools, but this works perfectly. Where you measure it out from the door handle to the top of the door and you feed it to the other side. So when it dangles down, you can kind of just like scooch it across and then pull up on it, which is honestly really cool. Tremendous. There's another one, which is also my beloved, because this thing looks kind of scary. The double door tool. So these works for like crash bars, where, I guess, okay. For like a door like this, usually there's two, and then usually there's like a way too large of a gap in between them. So what you can do is you could stick this in between the gaps in the door and get this part to like hook the crash bar and pull it open. So the only ones that work in this building for that are the doors that are like always open. So if you really, really want, you could like close the doors that are always open and then open them just to show that it works. But it's just right in the gap, and then you can pull the crash bar open. So that's another one. It's similar to the under door tool where you're just opening the door from the wrong side. Those work really well too. There's safes and safe cracking, which should have been a physical on Tuesday. Should have gone to physical IG. Yeah. Where like, okay, so you have like safe locking mechanisms. I already talked about this on Tuesday. But basically there's like a bunch of discs and you gotta line the whole thing up, and that's so much work, so I'm just gonna drill through the whole safe. And that's awesome, but there's like defenses against it, like poison gas from World War I. This is a real thing. Yeah, so it's awesome. Safes are really cool. And then just an extra little thing are like solenoid-based safes. So if you look a little closer, this will be useful to pay attention to. These apparati, will use an electric charge to kind of like shoot out this piston, but sometimes, or electromagnetic. But sometimes if you can apply enough force to the solenoid, it will actually like bounce back. So sometimes if you have a safe where this is the only mechanism keeping it closed and you like hit it hard enough, you can get that to jump, and if you time opening the safe right at the same time that the solenoid jumps, it just opens wide up. It's so simple, really. Allegedly. Oh wait, I was gonna live demo this, but no save. Dodged a bullet there. What? What do you mean? It depends. It has been both ways I've seen, because if sometimes they fail, if they fail open, like you could just short circuit it, or like you could just ruin the electronics and it'll fail open. But if it fails closed, you're cooked. So it happens both ways. Another big one's compromised keys, or like intentionally, this is just what the keys look like. TSA keys are a really good example of this, because there's only a certain amount of different ones. If I had to guess, I'd say like 7. And you can just buy these. Your bag has to be openable by TSA, so they always have the TSA keys. But if they always have the TSA keys and it's always the same ones, then you can just go in and buy them. And this is the same for like some fire code locks. I've actually been able to do this, of like getting in an elevator and being like, oh, like I know what this is, and it just opens up. So you can just go on Amazon. You can buy like huge key rings of like, if you just Google like 20 most common keys, it'll be like $20. You just buy it, throw it in a little backpack. Don't commit any crimes with it. There's also key cutting and key impressioning. This is Garrett's favorite thing ever. So these are key blanks. If you look, they don't have the little lines, like, or the little teeth. What's the other one? Hills and valleys. That's what. Okay. So you have key blanks without the hills and valleys. They're extremely cheap. And then there's the key unblankers, where you could like say, I think there's like certain numbers, like ranges. So it'd be like, oh, this is a like 4 valley. So like you can take it and you could take your key unblanker. What's the word? Garrett, help. Impressioner? Key impressioner? Is that key cutter? I don't know. Key cutter, key impressioner. And you can cut the different ridges and valleys and teeth into it on your own. And then there's some that can just do it automatically, where you just like scan in a key and it'll just cut it for you. Speaking of, to quote Loudon, or to quote Bailey, who was quoting Loudon, who I'm quoting, don't post your keys on social media, please. Like, come on, man. Be so for real. This took Bailey, I watched him do this like 38 seconds to do an MS Paint. And like you could just kind of carve that in. Like, aw, nice new apartment. That's so awesome. I love the wedding ring. Aw. Come on, man. This is my wedding ring now. Also, that's every key to the Vatican. dude. So if you ever want to get into the Vatican, actually, the thing is, I don't know how you're going to make like that, but theory's still there. So how does this actually get applied? And this is kind of my only flex that I've ever had, is I've actually gotten to go on a physical engagement. I gave a talk about it 2 months ago, and I kind of just kept talking about it because I was like, this is so awesome, until everyone got sick of it. But now it's applicable again. So for the first step, there's planning and rules of engagement. This is how you're going to talk about the when. Like, what dates are you going to be there? What times you're going to be there? Like, are you allowed to go in at night? Are you allowed to only be there during the day? And then the where. Like, what buildings are in scope? Say they have like 4 sites. They only want you to break into 3 of them, and they only want you to get into like 2 of the floors in the 3rd building. And then also the how. So are you going to be telling your contact, hey, we're about to like go try to trip all your alarms at one time to see if it breaks anything? Like, you sometimes they want you to communicate these things before you try them. Sometimes they're like, surprise me. What techniques are you allowed to do? Are you allowed to pick locks? Some places with the rule of like, don't pick locks you rely on, they don't want you screwing with them, just in case like something goes wrong. 3 Gs of gaslight, gatekeeping, and girl bossing of, are you allowed to manipulate their employees to try to get access? Sometimes they're like, you can use a helicopter if you can to get in. Like Mission Impossible, like it's Mission Possible, you just got to get a helicopter. And this is all defined in a scoping agreement. And then this is what goes into what's called a get out of jail free card, which is like actually like the real term for it. Where if you get caught, you show them that, you say, I'm allowed to be here from these times. I'm allowed to be here in these buildings. This guy told me I could do so. And then also making sure that that's valid, and like, this is not the right building, dude. Like, what? And then you're in jail. So adhering to that's pretty good too. Next thing is reconnaissance. So you want to look for things online before the test. It's like floor plans. Some places are required to actually post their floor plans. Some try really hard to keep it secret. So if you know what every room looks like before you get into it, that not only helps you look more like authentic that you're supposed to be there, but also just helps you like get around quicker. Employee badges. Is anyone posting on LinkedIn being like, oh my God, I just got hired, I'm so happy, and now you can just take a picture of that, put it on your own badge, and you look like a real person. Any attire. Like, oh, they only wear suits, so if I wear like flip-flops, like they're just gonna like with their taser on site. And then you want to try to build ideas for any personas. Are there any affiliated contractors or any groups that they know with? For example, if you know they have a cafeteria, going in as a food inspector. If you know that they are environmentally certified with LEED, saying like, I'm a lead recertifier. Like, if anyone said that to me, I'd be like, sure, man, like, go do you. Google Earthing, which I don't know if I can live demo that. After? Okay. So I'll demo Google Earthing for reconnaissance after. And then any job postings. This actually happened where before the test we're like, oh, like I wonder what jobs are open, and the first one that popped up was night guard. Like, hey, we're down people from like 2 a.m. to 8 a.m. That's awesome. That's textbook. And then also when you get to the site doing reconnaissance, you want to do laps at like normal times, weird times, and you want to see what entrances and exits are actually there. So doing reconnaissance, you could say, oh, there's 6 ways in, 6 ways out. But when you actually get on site, you find out that 4 of them have been closed and they only use 2 now. So finding and like fact checking all the things that you thought you knew in advance and making sure, like employee badges also. Did they change it all? Do they have like a new thing that changes every single day that you weren't aware of? Do they actually wear suits, or is it like wear a suit and then you can wear your like swimsuit? And then anything unusual. Like this is kind of like where intuition works out. Like if you walk in, you're like, wow, nobody's really badging in after lunch. Or like, oh, everyone's smoking at this one door and then they just kind of boss on back into the building. And then you want to look for like guard presence, people coverage when you're actually trying to do these things, because if you get caught breaking in, you're kind of cooked. So for actual break-ins, typically you're going to do this at night. Sometimes you're going to do it during the day if you want people to be there. So if you're going under the guise of like, I'm just working really late and like there's a couple people there, that kind of helps you blend in. But like you don't really want people to see you breaking into stuff. You could do the old bit where like, oh, I'm trying to break in, and then some guy sees me And I'm like, yeah, man, I saw this on YouTube. Like, isn't this awesome? And then he's like, yeah, let me try. And like, he'll break in for you. That would be cool. Doesn't always happen like that, though. And then you want to have knowledge of the building before you get there. So this is when you look up the floor plans and say, okay, there's a master staircase right here. If I take that, I can get up to the top floor. Bingo, bango, bongo, I'm set. And having the right tools for the job. This is where like the under door tool comes in handy. Sometimes you can just walk in with a really big box that says fragile and nobody will say anything. Sometimes you have to like roll it up weird because it's pretty flexible. Any common keys. If you get into an elevator and you're like, I can't go anywhere from here, having the common keys to say, okay, now I can actually like just say, or like go in the maintenance one and be like, take me to the 4th floor. There's a fire. Any lockpicks, if you're allowed to. Usually you just kind of want to rake if you can. Actually sitting there and lockpicking can take a bit, but it's always possible. And then any canned air that you want to try to use. And then when you're actually there, you're going to have like a crazy adrenaline spike. Like, oh my God, I just broke into a building. Like, I just tripped an alarm. I know the police are coming. I have to get in. I have to get out. And it's awesome. And then sometimes you're waiting for 4 hours in the stairwell, waiting for the cleaning crew to pass. A lot of times when you do physical tests, you'll go to like the bathroom during normal hours, and then you'll sit there for like 7 hours. And like I've heard other testers, like they'll go to the bathroom, they'll sit there for 7 hours. They'll like DoorDash food. They'll walk out, they'll pick it up, and they'll bring it back. And just have just like a little like party in the one stall for 6 hours. Yeah, so that's a rendering of a hypothetical building. And then for daytime entrances, usually you can't really break in broad daylight. It's a lot less hard. So you got to remember the 3 M's and the 3 G's, which is mansplain, manipulate, and manifest, and gatekeep, gaslight, and girl boss. And then like how am I going to try to trick these people into thinking I'm supposed to be here? So you're going to have like your plan. So like plan A, like I'm going to be a food inspector. It's going to be awesome. Nobody's going to bat an eye. It's going to be great. And then like plan B of like, oh, I'm here for a job interview. And then plan C, and then plan D is like you just pay someone to be really annoying at the front desk and hope that they get annoyed. So you want to think of every single detail. So if I go in as a food inspector, what kind of like equipment would they have? Like what's the food law for the area that I'm in? Like if I'm going in as a university student, what's like the building that all my classes are in case somebody's an alumni? And just kind of have these like predetermined responses. You don't want to overthink every single tiny detail, but you want to have all of your bases covered. And then you got to be ready to do none of that. You could spend like 3 days coming up with the perfect pretext to get in, the perfect personas, get it all ready to go. And then you could just be told 8 minutes before you're actually like on site, like just get ready, put on a suit, we're leaving. And that's happened before. The biggest thing also is taking every opportunity. If like a door, like someone walks out of a door in front of you and it's starting to shut, like you can just grab it. Like when that could be like the most important door, you could also just completely have just trapped yourself. But those risks, when you have such little time and you don't really have, like you're an outsider inside this building, you kind of just got to grab them. If an elevator opens up, jump in the elevator, good luck. That's kind of just how it goes sometimes. So you want to be a human. Like if, say you are doing the food inspector job and you walk in and you're like, dude, like traffic today was awful. Like the small talk, the little things that just say like, I'm just a little guy. At the end of the day, you're just trying to be a little guy. Like you don't want to cause a huge scene. You just want to blend in just enough. Not talking enough, they'll be like, who is this guy? He hasn't said a word to us. Like he's just here. He's kind of lurking. He's like keeps looking at the door handles and he keeps like pulling out this canned air, and it's a whole thing. And then you also don't want to talk too much, because then they'll also be like, who is this guy? If I come up and I'm like, oh yeah, man, like how's it going? Like if I was to climb up to the 14th floor, and then like, would anyone really try to catch me if I tried to tailgate? Would that be weird? Yeah, that's really bad. You don't want to be that either. And then there's other like physical mechanisms that'll block you. Man traps, which I forgot to talk about, which you have to badge in. It'll like one person goes in at a time. There's a couple like goofy things you can do that to try to screw with people to get like 2 people in a man trap at a time, but it's a whole lot. So there are some like mechanisms to prevent like socially engineering your way into buildings, but for the most part, it's like you just kind of got to manipulate people. It's awesome. And then if you're actually doing this for a job, you have to write a 1 billion page report. You have to tell them what's broken. Be like, yeah, this door is like a 4-inch gap. I could fit like my entire arm up and open it. That's something that they want to know. You want to tell them how to fix it. So like door, for example, like look at how bad that door is. Boom, doohickey. You just put in like a little, not door stop, like just a little thing there to block the door, so people can't like under door tool it. People can't put in bore scopes and look around. And then sometimes they'll be like, yeah, people always tell us get a helicopter and climb on the roof. Like, we want to see you guys do that, do that, do that, do that. I'm like, awesome. Like, sometimes it just go like that. Sometimes the CEO's there. And he's like, yeah, man. He's like, you know this guy's worth like $1 billion. And you shake his hand. And you're like, this is crazy. And then he's like, never mind. That's a story for another day. Wow, yeah. What's this one? Oh, yeah. Sometimes the helicopter would come in handy. Sometimes you see a little roof access. And you're like, I wonder. Or maybe you took ninja training and it's on the second story. You're like, I could get up there. I know I can. And it just like eats at you. Like, I could have got up there. Hypothetically. So, yeah, that's how you break into literally everything on this earth, and there's nothing else that I missed that could not be encompassed in this talk. That's it. That's all of physical security. Yeah. Bye. Actually, does anyone have questions before I say bye? What? The demo? Oh, wait, yeah. Oh, wait. The most interesting thing that has happened on an actual test that is not legally binding. So again, I've only done the one. But the coolest thing was other people agreeing with your story. So I don't know if you heard the talk, but basically I went in saying at a job interview, I talked to people at the desk, and on the way back I got caught. And when they started talking to me, I was like, no, I'm just here for a job interview. And the people who let me in were right around the corner. And I was like, hey guys, like, the job interview. And they're like, yeah. And like, they were talking to me the whole time. They're like, just be yourself, man. It's awesome. And like, they helped out my story. So they did all the work. They gave me all the credibility, and I just got to go through. So how many companies are out there looking for this stuff? Like, so having like ordering these kinds of tests, or the ones that do these kind of tests? There are a bunch of different places that do that. Usually, according to the people that I was on with, like my managers, they kind of like change and trend. So like recently, there's been a little bit of an upward trend. So the company I was with, Security Risk Advisors, they said they had like 5 for the year, which is higher than normal. I mean, you have to go travel. It's like a whole process. But it's kind of like, it varies. Some places specialize and only do them. So, I mean, they're going to be doing them the entire year. Some places, like penetration testing firms, it's just another type of test that you can get. Did anyone see the Google Earth demo? So, I thought about this last night as I typed up the word Google Earth of like, and I spent, when we were doing the reconnaissance for the test, I spent so long just looking at Google Earth because like, this is really fun. And I actually found some really cool stuff. So, hold on. The mouse? Oh. Google Earth. What do you mean salt? So, like, I was like, what if I just went to RIT and just started, like just looking for stuff? So, I'm just going to do a little Google Earth. What is this project? Hello? And we're going to go to RIT. Somehow. And has anyone played HVZ before? So, like, you kind of know, like, what doors are safe, which ones are side doors that don't count, things like that. So what I thought is I was like, okay, so using my HVZ knowledge, you guys know Slaughter Quad? There's like, where is it? It's like there's one really, where is it? Hold on. Yeah, there's one like really big entrance here. There's one really big entrance here, and then here, and then here. So like, I think we just drop right in. And what you're looking for this is any sort of doors that may be under door toolable any like obvious like smoking locations that people would use. It's like that's a main door. That's a revolving door. It's pretty difficult. A lot of the door handles on campus are actually pretty okay. They use the vertical ones, so you can't underdoor, you can't overdoor. So I'm sure there's bypasses for those, but none that I really am aware of. I was like, let's just click through, start looking for side doors. There's a little sentinel. Sustainability. Let's just stick with this path. It's like, okay. Looks like there's side doors here. Hello? Hello? Please? I can see this side door. I want to get closer. Oh my God, please. Just trust the process. Hold on. Trust. Trust. Stick with me. Keep going. One more. Hold on. Okay, I was gonna make this big deal about like, oh, I just found this door. It's crazy. I didn't even know. When you actually get over there, I forgot how to do it, but the door's just open. Like there's like a huge crack in the door. It's perfectly under door tool. That is like the perfect door in this entire planet to ever try to break in. But I literally cannot get over there. You just gotta trust me. Wait, hold on. Check this out. Oh, there we go. I should have just done this. But I was like, there's no way. Come on, man. It's like if you're actually doing this for work and like you're like, yo, I'm bored. I'm just gonna Google Earth for like 4 hours. Like you just see this and you're like, we just won. Because even if you can't get into that door, that's still a horrible sign that maybe they're not really taking physical security too seriously. That door handle you can perfectly like latch around and pull it down. Sometimes you can really see like the key, like what kind of locks they use really well. And then sometimes the door's just open. So this took me like 9 minutes to find yesterday, but I was too amazed that like in these pictures sustainability wasn't there. Like the whole building was just gone, which is crazy. So that yeah. So I just kept looking at that, but then like eventually it just shows up. Where'd it go? What the? So I think this is pre 2017. Wow, you really? Okay. Yeah, it's not working. I'm just clicking around Google Earth now. This is fun. You guys should try this out sometimes. Yeah, ideally there's a building there. But long story short, you can use Google Earth and just kind of hop around looking for any obvious doors, looking for any obvious vulnerabilities in like the actual buildings themselves. You could look at employees, you can look at badges, you can look at attire, and it's just awesome. Okay, now that the awesome demo's over, any more questions? Splendid. Thanks, guys.